He was counting change for gas money when he heard her sobbing, a stranger in designer clothes, crying alone in the darkness. What happened next would prove that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest miracles. If you believe that compassion can change everything, you're exactly where you need to be. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories of hope travel. The fluorescent lights of the Shell station flickered against the October night as Marcus Williams stood at pump number 4, his calloused hands carefully counting crumpled bills and loose change. $23.47, enough for half a tank if he was lucky. At 26, Marcus looked older than his years, the weight of single parenthood etched in the lines around his eyes and the permanent tiredness that seemed to follow him everywhere. His rusty Toyota Camry wheezed softly in the background, its engine ticking as it cooled. In the back seat, his 4-year-old daughter Lily slept peacefully, clutching her worn teddy bear, Mr. Buttons. She'd fallen asleep during the drive home from his second job at the diner, where he washed dishes until closing time. The babysitter, Mrs. Chen from downstairs, had agreed to watch Lily until he got back, but Marcus knew she worried about him working so late. As he inserted his debit card, praying it wouldn't be declined, Marcus heard something that made his blood run cold. Soft, desperate sobs cutting through the night air like a blade through silence. Near the air pump station, partially hidden in shadows, a woman sat hunched over on the concrete curb, her shoulders shaking with grief so profound it seemed to emanate from her very soul. She was impeccably dressed in what Marcus recognized as expensive clothing, even from a distance. A black cashmere coat, designer heels, and perfectly styled blonde hair that caught the harsh station lights. Her silver Lexus SUV sat nearby, its pristine surface reflecting the neon signs like a mirror. Everything about her screamed wealth and success, yet she looked utterly broken. Other customers moved past her quickly, their eyes averted, uncomfortable with such raw emotion displayed in public. A businessman in a suit hurried by, talking loudly on his phone about quarterly reports. A couple argued about directions as they pumped gas, oblivious to the woman's distress. Everyone seemed to exist in their own bubble of concerns, sealed off from the pain happening just meters away. But something deep in Marcus's chest tightened with recognition. He knew that particular brand of despair, had felt it himself during those darkest nights after Sarah left him and Lily without explanation. The crushing weight of being completely alone in the world, surrounded by people but feeling invisible. His gas tank only half full, Marcus found himself walking toward the woman, his work boots echoing against the concrete. Each step felt heavy with purpose, though he had no idea what he would say or do. He just knew he couldn't walk away from such profound sadness. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said softly, his voice gentle despite his exhaustion. "Are you okay?" The woman's head snapped up, startled, revealing tear-streaked cheeks and eyes swollen from crying. She appeared to be in her early 40s, with the kind of polished beauty that spoke of spa treatments and personal trainers. But in this moment, stripped of pretense by grief, she looked fragile and utterly human. "I'm sorry," she whispered, frantically dabbing at her eyes with a tissue that had clearly seen heavy use. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone. I should probably go home." Without thinking, Marcus settled down on the curb beside her, ignoring the cold concrete seeping through his jeans, his own bone-deep exhaustion momentarily forgotten in the face of this stranger's pain. The night air carried the familiar scents of gasoline and distant rain, while cars drifted past like ships in the darkness. "Sometimes we all need a moment," he said simply, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "I'm Marcus." "Catherine," she replied, her voice barely audible. "Catherine Morrison." They sat in companionable silence for several minutes, two strangers bound together by the universal language of struggle. Finally, Catherine began to speak, her words pouring out like Water through a broken dam. The funeral was yesterday, she said, her voice hollow and distant. My daughter, Emma, she was only 16. Catherine's hands clenched into fists. Everyone keeps telling me they understand my pain, that time heals all wounds, that Emma's in a better place now. But they don't understand. Nobody does. Marcus felt his heart clench with sympathy. He glanced back at his sleeping daughter in the car, trying to imagine the unbearable pain of losing her. I'm so sorry for your loss. What happened? Catherine's breathing became shaky, and for a moment Marcus thought she wouldn't continue. Then the words poured out in a torrent of grief. Emma was walking home from her friend's house last Tuesday evening, just 4 blocks from our house, a route she'd taken hundreds of times. A drunk driver ran a red light and... She paused, struggling with the memory. She was in the hospital for 3 days. 3 days of machines and tubes and doctors who couldn't look me in the eye when they gave me updates. My husband, Richard, he couldn't handle it. He's been staying at his brother's house since the funeral. Says he needs space to process his grief. Catherine's voice turned bitter. Space, as if grief is something you can outrun by changing your location. Marcus pulled out his worn leather wallet and carefully extracted a small photograph. A little girl with pigtails and a gap-toothed grin, wearing a princess costume that had seen better days. This is Lily. She just turned 4 last month. Catherine took the photo with trembling hands, studying the young face that smiled back at her with innocent joy. She's beautiful, she has your eyes. Where's her mother? Catherine asked gently, though something in Marcus's expression had already given her the answer. Marcus's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. The old wound, never quite healed, threatened to open again. Sarah left us when Lily was 2. Said, being a parent was too hard, that she wasn't ready for the responsibility. I came home from work one day to find a note on the kitchen table and half her clothes gone. Haven't heard from her since. So it's just the 2 of you? Marcus nodded, taking the photograph back and carefully placing it in his wallet. As he did, Catherine caught a glimpse of his hands, calloused, scarred, telling the story of hard manual labor and endless sacrifice. You look tired, Catherine observed, her own pain momentarily eclipsed by concern for this stranger who had stopped to comfort her. Marcus let out a short laugh that held no humor. 2 jobs will do that to you. Construction during the day, dishwasher. At Tony's diner at night, Lily stays with Mrs. Chen, our neighbor, when I can't be home. She's good to us, but... He trailed off, staring at the ground. It's not the same as having a dad around all the time. 2 jobs, that must be incredibly difficult. We get by, Marcus said with quiet dignity, though the exhaustion in his voice told a different story. Lily's a good kid, smart as they come. She's always asking questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? How do birds fly? Where does the sun go at night? Her preschool teacher says she's reading at a 1st grade level already. Marcus paused, then added more quietly, I just wish I could give her more. Better clothes that aren't from thrift stores, a bigger apartment, maybe some of those educational toys she's always staring at in store windows. Sometimes I find her coloring by candlelight because I couldn't pay the electric bill on time, and it breaks my heart. Catherine felt something crack inside her chest. Here was this man, clearly struggling with every aspect of survival, working himself to the bone just to keep his head above water. Yet he had stopped his own evening, used his precious time and energy to comfort a complete stranger. The contrast wasn't lost on her. She, with all her wealth and resources, sat broken and alone, while this man who had so little still had enough compassion to share. What's Lily's favorite thing to do? She asked gently. Marcus's face lit up slightly as he talked about his daughter, and Catherine saw a glimpse of the man he might be if the weight of constant worry wasn't crushing down on him. She loves to build things. Last week, she constructed this elaborate castle out of empty cereal boxes and toilet paper rolls. Called it Princess Lily's fortress. She spent hours on it, making little furniture out of bottle caps and drawing pictures on the walls. But, Catherine prompted, sensing there was more to the story. Marcus's expression grew somber again. The good preschools, the ones with proper art programs and music classes and field trips to museums, they cost money we don't have. Lily's brilliant, but brilliance doesn't pay for enrichment programs or private lessons. I'm doing everything I can, working myself to exhaustion, but sometimes... His voice cracked slightly. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing her. Catherine reached into her purse and pulled out a fresh tissue, though whether it was for her tears or his, she couldn't say. You know what I see when I look at you, Marcus? He shook his head, not trusting his voice. I see a man who stopped his own evening, tired as you clearly are, worried as you obviously are about money and bills and responsibilities, to comfort a stranger. In a world where most people would have walked past, pretended not to notice. You chose kindness. Her voice grew stronger, more certain. Emma was like that too. Even at 16, she volunteered at the animal shelter every weekend, spent her allowance on treats for the rescue dogs. She used to tell me that small acts of love were what made life worth living. Marcus wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve. Your daughter sounds like she was an amazing person. She was, Catherine whispered, and sitting here with you. Tonight, talking about Lily and seeing the love in your eyes when you speak about her, I'm reminded that Emma's spirit isn't gone. It lives on in people like you, in parents who choose love over everything else, even when it's hard. They talked for another hour, sharing stories that bridge the gap between their vastly different worlds. Catherine told Marcus about Emma's dreams of becoming a veterinarian, how she'd rescued injured birds and nursed them back to health in a makeshift hospital in their garage. Marcus shared memories of Lily's latest fascination with dinosaurs, how she'd made him check under her bed every night, not for monsters, but to make sure there weren't any lonely dinosaurs who needed hugs. As the night grew later and the gas station grew quieter, Catherine finally stood up, smoothing down her expensive coat. The tears had stopped, replaced with something Marcus couldn't quite identify. A sense of purpose, perhaps, or newfound determination. I should let you get home to Lily. She'll be wondering where you are. Marcus checked his phone and winced. Nearly midnight. Yeah, Mrs. Chen's probably worried sick. Before you go, Catherine said, reaching into her purse once more, I want you to have this. She held out an elegant business card with raised lettering. Marcus took it uncertainly, reading the name. James Morrison, Morrison and Associates Financial. Planning. Ma'am, I appreciate the thought, but I'm not sure what I'd need with a financial planner. Catherine smiled, and for the first time that evening it reached her eyes. Really reached them, transforming her entire face. Just call him tomorrow morning. Ask him about the Emma Morrison Memorial Fund. Tell him Catherine sent you. Memorial Fund? Marcus's brow furrowed in confusion. Promise me you'll call, Catherine said, something urgent in her tone that made Marcus nod, though he still didn't understand. I promise. Good. Catherine extended her hand, and Marcus shook it, surprised by the firmness of her grip. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Tonight you reminded me that there's still goodness in the world worth fighting for. The next morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through the thin curtains of their small apartment. Marcus was getting Lily ready for preschool, helping her into her favorite dress, a hand-me-down from Mrs. Chen's granddaughter, when the phone rang. Daddy, phone, Lily announced importantly, as if Marcus couldn't hear the ringing himself. Mr. Marcus Williams? The voice was professional, refined. That's me. This is James Morrison from Morrison and Associates. My wife, Catherine, asked me to call you this morning. She said you might be interested in learning about the Emma Morrison Memorial Fund. Marcus's hand flew to his back pocket, feeling for his e-wallet where he'd tucked Catherine's business card. Yes, sir. She gave me your card last night. Excellent. I'd like to meet with you in person if possible. Are you available this morning? I believe what we have to discuss will be worth your time. 2 hours later, Marcus sat in an office that was easily larger than his entire apartment. James Morrison was a distinguished man in his 50s, with kind eyes that held the same pain Marcus had seen in Catherine's the night before. But there was something else there too. Hope, purpose, determination. My wife told me about your conversation last night, James began, his voice measured but warm. She came home different than she's been since we lost Emma. For the first time in weeks, she seemed to have a reason to get out of bed. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in the leather chair. Sir, if this is about charity, I appreciate the thought. But it's not charity, James interrupted gently. It's investment. Catherine and I have been looking for the right way to honor Emma's memory, something that would reflect her values and her love for helping others. He opened a folder on his desk and pulled out several documents. The Emma Morrison Memorial Fund has been established to provide comprehensive support for single parents who demonstrate both exceptional need and exceptional character. After last night, Catherine is convinced you represent exactly what Emma would have wanted us to support. Marcus stared at the papers James slid across the desk, dollar amounts that seemed impossible, terms like full educational support, housing assistance, and career development grants. This can't be real, Marcus whispered. People don't. We met her once. She doesn't know us. Oh, but she does know you, James said with conviction. She knows you're the kind of man who stops to help a stranger even when you're struggling yourself. She knows you're raising a daughter who asks questions about the world because you've taught her that curiosity is valuable. And she knows that sometimes the most deserving people are the ones who would never think to ask for help. The fund, James explained, would provide immediate financial assistance for housing, enough to move to a better neighborhood with good schools. It would cover Lily's educational expenses through college, including enrichment programs, art classes, and summer camps. There would be career counseling and training opportunities for Marcus, helping him transition from manual labor to something more sustainable. But there's a condition, James added, and Marcus felt his heart sink. Of course, there was a catch. Things like this didn't happen to people like him. Catherine would like to be involved in Lily's life, if you're comfortable with that. Nothing intrusive. Nothing that would interfere with your role as her father, but she'd like to take Lily to museums, help with school projects, maybe teach her some of the things Emma would have enjoyed doing. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. Why? Why would you do this for strangers? James leaned forward, his own eyes moist. Because last night you gave my wife something we thought was lost forever. Hope, purpose, a reason to believe that Emma's death wasn't meaningless, that good still exists in the world. He pulled out a photograph, a teenage girl with bright eyes and a warm smile, holding a rescued puppy. This is Emma. She believed that kindness was contagious, that one person choosing compassion could start a chain reaction that might change the world. Last night you proved her right. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the kitchen of their new 3-bedroom house, watching through the window as Lily and Catherine worked together in the garden, planting flowers in memory of Emma. Lily chattered excitedly about the butterflies she'd spotted, while Catherine listened with the patient attention of someone who understood that every moment with a child was precious. Marcus had enrolled in night classes to become a social worker, using the fund's educational support to build a career helping other struggling families. The construction work was behind him, replaced by meaningful days spent connecting people with resources and hope. "Daddy, look!" Lily called from the garden, holding up a tiny green sprout. "Miss Catherine says this will grow into a sunflower as tall as the house." Catherine caught Marcus's eye through the window and smiled. Not the broken woman he'd met at the gas station, but someone who had found a way to transform grief into purpose, pain into love. That night, as he tucked Lily into her own bedroom, for the first time in her life, she looked up at him with serious 4-year-old eyes. "Daddy, Miss Catherine told me about Emma, how she's in heaven now, but her love is still here with us." "That's right, sweetheart. And Miss Catherine said that when you helped her when she was sad, it was like Emma's love working through you." Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead, marveling at how a moment of simple human decency had blossomed into something none of them could have imagined. "Sometimes, Lily, the most important thing we can do is just be kind to someone who's hurting. You never know how much it might mean." As he turned off the light, Lily's sleepy voice followed him to the door. "I want to be kind like that too, Daddy. I want to help sad people feel better." And Marcus knew that Emma's legacy, and Catherine's, love would continue growing, one act of kindness at a time. This isn't just a story about unexpected generosity. It's about the profound truth that we're all connected, that pain shared becomes more bearable, and that sometimes the people who look like they have everything together are the ones who need compassion most. If this story moved you, remember that you encounter potential Marcus and Catherine moments every day. The tired cashier, the overwhelmed parent, the lonely neighbor, they're all opportunities to prove that kindness still matters, because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings sharing this journey together. And sometimes the most revolutionary thing we can do is simply stop and ask, "Are you okay?" Sometimes one conversation at a gas station changes everything. What will your moment of compassion create?